Everyone. Welcome back to Hustle and Harmony. Super excited to have you here today. I'm joined, of course, by my co-host, Alyssa O'Neill. And today we're really excited to have another guest here for you. We have Jeannie Baldomero here, all the way from San Diego, California. I'm very jealous. I've always wanted to go to San Diego. I hear it's so beautiful out there.
I don't know how San Diego got on there. I apologize. I just realized I'm like, why is San Diego on there?
I go, oh, I knew it was Southern California. Now I know it's San Diego. Um, Hi, Jeannie. Thanks for being here on Hustle and Harmony. We're really excited to dive in with you today. And for anyone that's new to Hustle and Harmony, just as a reminder, we are here. We're a podcast dedicated to empowering women to live purpose-filled lives and really to be able to cultivate a sense of harmony in today's hustle culture. And one of the big new things that we're really excited about is branching out into new topics and unexplored topics, at least from our own experience, Alyssa and I, and getting insights from women who have expertise in a lot of different areas that we think are going to be really valuable to anyone and everyone listening. And today I'm really excited to share with you Jeannie's area of expertise. So without further ado, let me go ahead and introduce her and we'll go ahead and get right into it. So Jeannie Baldomero is a mentor of moms with teen girls. She's an author and the host of Raising Her Confidently. She helps moms create open communication with their teenage daughters and deepen their relationships. She's a wife of 24 years, a mom of three young adults, and living in sunny Southern California, as we just mentioned. Her passion for kids as a former educator, her value for a strong, healthy family unit as a former homeschooling family, and zeal to impact young teen girls has led her to partner with moms and guide them to create those healthy relationships and communication with their teens. So I am really excited to dive into this. Like I was mentioning before we hit record, a great benefit of having a podcast is being able to invite guests on that can speak to things that are, very relevant to us as the host specifically, right? We both have young daughters. Mine are in that tween age and getting close to the teens. So I'm definitely going to be listening with perked ears and really excited to see everything that you have to share today. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. I'll kick it off. So Jeannie, why don't you let us know what inspired you to focus your work on helping moms raise confident teen girls, and why did you start Raising Her Confidently?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure to be able to share what I'm most passionate about. And to answer your question about raising her confidently, it started with my story, really. I did an identity study for myself, gosh, about maybe 7 years ago. And what I noticed that some of the things that I've struggled and I brought along with me, we talk about carrying a backpack and you have rocks in your backpack that I've dragged along with me through my adult years, all stemmed from my 13-year-old self. Fast forward, I mentored middle school when age girls when my daughter was in middle school, and moms were coming to me about their daughters with the same type of challenges that my mom had when she was raising me as a 13-year-old. I was not exactly like, I went to a Catholic school, but I wasn't exactly the Catholic girl turning
Okay.
13. I think like my mom even talked to me and she's like, I don't even know who you are anymore. I mean, that was the drastic change that happened in me and how raising her confidently came about and mentoring moms who are raising young teen girls really came out of my own story that what did my 13-year-old person need? And most importantly, what did my mom need at that time raising me? And so that is why Raising Her Confidently came about, is to be able to speak to moms who desire this healthy relationship, who desire to understand their daughters a little bit better.
And how important that is. And
Yes.
it's crazy how we as moms have all been there. We've been
Mhm.
that teen girl. And yet, I think, at least speaking for myself, you can forget what it's like,
Yep.
and you need maybe some reminders and tips of what's really needed to make those connections. So,
Yes,
I
exactly.
think too, like with me with my daughters, so my daughters are 5 and 8,
Mhm.
but it's also seeing how different they are from me and learning how to like kind of help them in the way that they need to be helped that also might be different from myself, which has been, I don't know, like a big lesson for me. I have one daughter who's like very emotional and super sensitive, and then my other daughter isn't, typically that way. And so I've
Mhm.
had to really focus on my parenting because I have to parent them each individually different, which we always have to do. But with girls, I feel like it's even just because of hormones and all the things. I just
Yes.
think it's even more different. So I
Yes.
guess, Jeannie, a good question to ask next would be, what has surprised you most about the mother-daughter dynamic during the teenage years? Like, what's come to us as a surprise to you?
I think that nothing's really changed generation from generation to generation. That the challenge that happened through these turbulent times hasn't changed between mother and daughters. The circumstances and the climate might be a little bit different. I grew up on a TV and a pager, where my daughter has access to social media and the world, right? I didn't have the internet, but my daughter did. But the changes happening in her, the disconnection, the insecurities are still the same. So what surprised me about that, it really hasn't changed from
Yeah.
one generation to another to
It's
another.
interesting.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you say that. So, piggybacking off of that a little bit, right? So you mentioned the the dynamics haven't necessarily changed, but have you noticed in your own perspective that challenges of the girls have changed at all, compared to when we were younger or you were younger, and the things that they're coming up against and struggling with?
I think the intensity is changed a bit. I think the issues of peer pressure, which I'll talk about later, the types of pressures are the same, but I think the intensity is a little bit higher,
Okay.
right?
Do you have any thought around what is it social media that's driving
Social
that, or
media
is
and
it?
technology, yes,
Yeah.
access to more information than
Yeah.
they're
Mhm.
exposed to more information that they can handle
Yeah.
developmentally, right? So, at least when I was growing up, I had the TV. I think that's what my parents sheltered me from was the TV, was from the radio, certain music, right? And us raising our teenagers in a technologically savvy environment where the internet, the social media, I mean, just about anything you have access to. I mean, they can just, if they have a thought, they can Google it and information pops up. So having that access and not a big buffer between us and what they have access to has changed, right?
Yeah.
And developmentally, they're exposed to more information than we would like them to be.
Yeah, I
Makes sense.
definitely agree with that. I think accessibility is one of the biggest things as parents that we're fighting against
Hmm.
because it's beyond our control.
Yeah.
And as a control freak, myself personally, like I want to be able to control everything. I'm like super type A, I guess. And the fact that I can't do that is something that as a parent, it's like humbling me to this place of like, all right, Alyssa, you don't have as much control as you'd like to have. But then also making sure my kids have enough tools in their toolbox
Yep.
to handle what's coming at them. And
Yes.
that's that like mindset shift that I've just recently had is like, okay, if I can't control it, then I at least need to equip them to be able to try to handle everything that's coming at them. So,
Or, in another way, equip them or make sure that they're comfortable coming to you with if they're
mhm.
running into information or having
Yep.
questions about what they're finding, can they come and talk to you about it? And then
Yes.
have a conversation, and then you can chime in and add to it. And I think, which is so perfect, right? That you're here to help us with this. Like
Yes.
I said, I have a almost 10-year-old and then an 11 and a half year old. So, but I feel like even with the tween age, to me, like they already feel like teens a little bit with the attitudes or with, whatever. So I'm really looking forward to digging in more.
Yeah.
So,
Adolescence actually can start as early as 8 years old. It just depends on the individual, right? So, I mean, you might be already in that adolescent stage where you're having to shift the way you're thinking and how we approach things, right? It's
yeah.
it's really about how we approach things.
Hmm. Yep, I agree. So, what do you think, Jeannie, are some signs that a mom might be losing their connection or trust with their teen, even if it seems fine on the surface?
Oh, that's a good question. I actually teach that in my framework, Talk to Your Teen Girl framework. The first thing I teach is building trust. And moms probably look at me like, wait, building trust? I don't even know what I did to lose that trust in the first place, right? And so, what happens when your daughter starts to move from childhood stage into an adolescent stage, even pre-adolescent? You'll start to notice this disconnection. She's no longer talking to you, talking your ear off if she's used to talking your ear off. She's in her room more. She's a little more private. She starts to answer you with just one or two words, and you, mama, can feel that shift in your relationship. It's because she's starting to go through the change, right? The change of um, puberty, really. It's the hormonal changes that are happening to her. Her body's starting to develop, getting ready for childbirth. It's like, nah, I don't want to hear this. My daughter's like only 10, 11. We can't. But things are happening to her, especially emotionally as well. She's starting to discover her own person. She's starting to discover that she no longer lives in a bubble of family, maybe it's church and school that she's exposed to, that there is this bigger world out there that her brain is seeking, right? And so now she's starting to understand, like, okay, who am I in this world? Wow, I see lots of things out there that my family rightfully protected me from, but now I want to discover how that fits for me. How do I identify that? So it's a stage of self-discovery and exploration. And so it may seem like she doesn't trust you right now because you have only been the focus of influence. Now she's allowing other people to influence her, like friends, boys, outside influences, even social media is starting to influence her. And so it's like this trust has been broken down with you. It may seem like she's lost trust, but I think your influence, it's more that your influence isn't as influential as it used to be, right? So it seems like she doesn't trust me anymore, but it's more of your influence doesn't have a big impact like it did before, right? It's a season of exploration and finding our way. And how can we break this barrier? Well, we have to be able to shift with her, right? If we can understand where she's at, then we need to shift in that season too, right? We're no longer the mom that is the queen. So I talk about these parenting stages. We're no longer the queen in her life. Now we're switching to being a coach in her life.
Mm.
And that requires a shift in roles, right? And so how we can do that and build connection is really getting curious. First, being able to understand, like, okay, I need to recognize that my daughter is changing, that this disconnect has nothing to do with our relationship. It has everything with her changes happening within her. She's becoming her own woman. I mean, that's what we want for our girls, right? But yet she still needs guidance. And we have to be able to accept that we need a shift to being a coach and being available in that role now. We're no longer the only influence she has. She's going to have other people in her life, and we'll talk about that a little bit later too. But being able to build trust in a different way, connect to her how she wants to be connected now. So
Yeah.
that's a
As
long
you're
answer.
saying,
Sorry.
no,
No,
it's great. It's great. As you're saying it, and I'm thinking, of course, about myself and my girls and shifting to a new season and the thought of, oh my gosh, not being that queen, right? And like I'm like getting a little bit sad and not in my stomach, like, oh my gosh, like you're right. We have to approach them differently or work with them differently, or interact with them differently. And maybe in that vein, what are maybe some of the common misconceptions that we as mothers tend to have when it comes to understanding or thinking what our daughters need from us in these ages.
This season. Okay. Well, first, I'm going to go back to it is a sad moment. I talk about mourning. Like you have to
Mm.
mourn that your little girl is no longer your little girl. And it's okay to allow yourself to mourn and have that grieving period because you're going to carry that into the next season. And we can't do that because it's going to get in the way of you shifting, right? So we have to allow us a period of grieving, whether it's journaling. I miss when she did this. I miss our times, our connection time. I don't know, whatever special thing you've did. And she no longer likes to do that. just write it out and identify that's something you're going to have to say goodbye to because you're going to say hello to a new season, right? It's just going to look differently. And I think that's very important for moms to do first because we, again, don't want to carry that into our relationship, uh, guiding our teenager into this new season because we can inadvertently have that insecurity that affects our relationship. It affects how we respond or how she responds to us, right? Because there are times where she's probably going to be disrespectful or she's going to be emotionally heightened. And if we take it personally because we're holding on to something, then that's how it's going to come out, right? It affects the way we react during this time. But some of the that's one of the biggest misconceptions, and it's definitely one of them. It's presence, being present. Like I even said it in my podcast, but I think moms have this misconception of what being present means. Being present means is being intentional with the time you have with her, whether it be 30 minutes or 3 hours, right? It doesn't mean you have to be there at every waking hour for her because you feel like you're missing a missed opportunity to connect with her. So it's not smothering them, it's not getting them out of trouble, it's not answering their questions and being the answer for them. Being present is really a sense of have I had a chance to connect with my daughter, whether it just be in the room with her and be ready if she needs me, for a conversation, or having some intentional time when she's available or after school where we do a surprise coffee visit, right? That's what I mean by being present. Being present doesn't mean that you are a 7-Eleven and available at all times doing everything for her.
That's helpful. And I just want to say thank you for giving us the permission to mourn, like
Oh,
moving in from seasons, right?
Yeah.
Because I never really heard of that before or even thought about it. You
yes.
often reflect as parents, like, oh my gosh, I missed it, when they were little or this and that, and when memories pop up. Um, but just the simple permission of like, okay, yes, this is happening and it's okay to be sad about
Yes.
it, as
Yes.
we move into a new season. So I just thought that was really cool. So thank you.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
you're welcome. You're
And I
welcome.
think too, as I'm listening to you, so I have two boys and two girls. My two boys are my older ones, and they're 10, gonna be 11 here soon, and 13. And so I'm just like, I feel like right now I'm in the thick of this getting into that coach role and not the queen role and the one word answers and when I want like a paragraph I want to know all the things but I
Yeah.
just get those short little answers and it is right like mourning that part of when they wanted to tell me everything and anything but I've also learned that if I meet them where they are, when they're ready to talk, they will tell me a lot of things if it's within a space where they feel like it's a safe time to have a conversation.
Yep.
So that's been a big realization for me. Like I know that when it's like time for bed and people are getting showers and doing all that in our house, it tends to be busy. But if I just like take a minute and, you know, help my boys separate their laundry and stuff, they'll just start talking away without me even like prompting the conversation, which so those are those little times that now I like soak up those moments that are not typically when they used to want to talk to me. So how do you feel that moms can support their daughter's emotional well-being without becoming overly controlling or anxious? Because I feel like this is going to be a struggle for me. Because, like I said, I
Yeah.
like to have control, but I don't want to be controlling of them. Like, I want them to have that freedom of self-discovery. So, what
Yes.
can we do?
Well, I always say you cannot control what you cannot control, but you can control what you can, right? And usually the things you can control is things that you do yourself instead of forcing someone else to do
Mm,
something, right?
yeah.
But it's first being okay with sitting in emotions, right? I think emotions can get us uncomfortable. Our mama bear wants to fix things. If they're crying their eyes out, they're not being the same person, something's wrong. We get uncomfortable with that and we want to be able to fix it. We want them to stop crying, right? Because we want them to be okay. But I think the first thing is just being okay with being uncomfortable with their feelings, being okay with not having the answers, and being okay with things not being okay, right? Um, that's what we need to get comfortable with. Sometimes, with my own daughter, she's gone through some, friendship drama, whatever it may be. I just end up sitting there letting her cry. I don't fix it. I let her share if she needs to share. But most importantly, I just sit there and allow her to feel the feels instead of bottle it up. And I think that's the most healthiest thing we can do. One thing we can do is allow them to just, like I say with moms, like you're allowed to mourn and feel what you need to feel. Same with our daughters and our kids. They are allowed to feel what they need to feel. Of course, they can't sit in it because then it doesn't do anything. But if we are able to equip ourselves to identify and label how they're feeling, I think it helps them recognize what's going inside in them. And that's one of the healthiest things we can do for them. And a book by Brene Brown called Atlas of the Heart, she identifies, gosh, I don't know, 97 emotions and feelings. There's that level of there's just mad, but then there's furious, there's angry, right? There's distraught, there's sad. So if we are able to give our kids, our daughters specifically, labels to label our emotions, I think that helps us understand what they're going through, and it helps them understand what they're going through as well.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
One question on that, 'cause such a good point, not to sit in the emotions, like the importance of feeling it, but don't get stuck there. You want to be able to move through it. Is there a perfect equation of how long do we let them feel before it starts to be sitting? When do we start to step in or try to encourage them to move through it a little bit, if that makes sense?
Yes, I think each daughter and each child is different, and each circumstance is different, right? I mean, a tiff with a friend, it has less impact than a full-blown ending of friendship, right?
Sure.
So I think it depends on the circumstance, and knowing your daughter specifically, when too long is too long for them, when they start to drown themselves in it impacts them in other areas, right? They're not wanting to go to school, they're not eating. That's
Okay.
when we start to jump in and say, "Hey, what's going on? You've been feeling this way, and now it's starting to impact your school and impact the way, you're eating. Like, how can we help you move along?"
Hmm.
Okay, that's really helpful. Yeah, just
Yes,
Yeah.
looking for those small signs. So thank you for that.
of course.
One other question around the communication. So we talked about, maybe some misconceptions from a mother's perspective and the signs of what it might look like once your daughter's moving into this new season. What what does healthy communication look like in this season then? Like, how do we know that we're in the good space?
Well, healthy communication doesn't mean there isn't conflict. I wanted to
It
get
probably
that
doesn't
straight.
mean talking all the time and they're
Right.
constantly talking your
Right.
ear off. Right.
Right, exactly. Or it doesn't mean that it's not a hard conversation. Healthy communication could also mean a hard conversation, right? It's not just, I'm open, I'm going to do everything, right? And we're not going to sit here and actually do the hard things, right? So with my own daughter, how it starts with healthy communication is really respecting each other's space, right? As she grew older, I mean, honestly, she's 19, and I do respect her space. I only give her advice unless she asks me, right? But it had to build. We had a scaffold up through there. So, for example, Ashley, you have an 11 and a half year old. I would start with actually connecting with her, like what Alyssa said, get to where they're at, meet them where they're at, being able to connect in that way, being consistent, right? Consistent in how you respond is so important. Uh, I think our daughters are very unique as far as heightened in feelings, that if they feel an ounce of being criticized or
Mm.
judged, it shuts them down, right? So we have to be able to have a authentic and genuine conversation with our daughters that doesn't have an agenda, that we are empathetic. We have empathetic conversations more than judgment type of conversations where we're trying to fix something or we are saying you should do this. We want to avoid shoulds, right? It's more of, gosh, I remember how that feels. That must have felt. I understand. I'm sorry. Did that make you happy? You know, wanting to understand where she's coming from, what are her feelings around conversations, having a safe environment for her to be open, even if you don't want to hear it. Even if it conflicts with your own
Mm.
value and you're like, oh, I didn't teach you that. And I don't know why why you feel that way. Even if her opinion is opposite of yours, remember, this is a self exploration. She's going to grab onto things and see how it fits. She's going to juggle and wrestle with it for a little bit. And she might spit things out where you're like, that doesn't even sound like you. But we want to refrain from saying that doesn't sound like you or that isn't you because that's judgment. That's criticism. We want to just be able to hear and be curious. I always say, get curious about what they say so that you can provide a safe environment of openness and be consistent in that. Be a better listener than you are a speaker. Ask great questions based on what they say and really be open with it. Even if they expect you to react to it, gosh, you want to surprise your daughter. Like, okay, not reacting to it like typical mom would, right?
Right.
If you can be consistent in that, the more they're going to open and the more healthy communication can come out of that because you're building trust with her. So that when one day you're saying, hey, do I have permission to say something? And if they say yeah, then you can go ahead, you know.
Yeah,
You're
I
good with
love
that.
that. I love that those are like you gave us phrases and words that we can use, tools for our own mom toolbox,
Yeah.
just to kind of have those conversations and approach them just so that we can have that openness
Yes.
in communication.
Yeah.
What would you say are your top strategies for helping teen girls build their confidence, build that, because I do think there's a lot of insecurity
Hmm.
and there's so much criticism that happens just from their peers. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? That makes them feel even more insecure in themselves. So, in a world of comparison, how can we help them build that confidence?
I also, just to add to that, I think there's a lot of self-criticism too,
Oh, yeah.
because their expectations of who they are is posted in their face every day on social media of who they should be, right?
Right.
So allowing her to do the hard things, right? Allowing her to make the mistakes and allowing her to solve them herself, right? Allow her to do the hard things. I think, at least with my kids, it's so easy for them to say, it's too hard, I'm not going to do that. Even just ordering food for themselves at a register, like, I have to
Yeah.
what? I have to talk to them, you
Oh my
know?
God, that's so funny you said that because my 11-year-old hates to do that.
Okay. That's what I mean.
Yes.
Okay, so that would be a difference between generations where I'm like, are you kidding me?
Right.
Yeah, where my 9-year-old is fine,
Yeah,
doing it. But, it's just, so it's funny because that's such a tangible example that's happened recently. Sorry
right.
to cut you off, but
No, and it's okay. Or even just, and it's funny because I consider this a hard conversation for our teenagers is if they got the order wrong and having to go back and say, my order is
Ah.
wrong. It's so hard for them to do that. But to allow them to do that, equip them with, hey, just tell them this, but you need to go. Can you come with me? Nope, I'm not gonna go with you. You got to do it yourself. This is if you want what you want, then you need to go do it. Right. So
Mhm.
allowing them to do that for themselves and even allowing them to make the mistakes and figure out how to solve them. Right. You can have that conversation like, they made a mistake. It's like, okay, well, what do you think you can do to fix this? Or what do you think what you can do to make it better next time? Right? It's allowing them to be okay with having the mistakes, but learning from them and
Mhm.
not beating themselves up because they've made a mistake, right? It's
Yeah.
like failing forward. Everyone makes a mistake. There's no such thing as a perfect journey, right?
Right.
But giving them that perspective and allowing them to make the mistakes, doing the hard things, maybe sharing your own stories of how you made a mistake and how you got through them, allows them to see that you can survive over that obstacle, right? That you will survive. It's not death, but
Hmm.
to them, it probably would be. And then
Yeah.
also reminding her who she is, right? You, mama, know her best. You know her unique gifts she possesses. We just talked about it, how each of our kids are different and how we have to approach them differently because they have great qualities in them, that they can receive things, right? So we need to remind them as moms what their unique gifts are. Affirmations. What I've done was post affirmations all over the house, like common places like the pantry, the mirror. I am beautiful. I am confident. I am enough. So it's simple reminders that we mamas don't have to hound them, but they can read themselves. And the more they read it, my husband actually just, we were talking last night about the scientific research that more positive thoughts actually, I hate the word manifest, but manifest positive results, whereas negative thoughts will manifest negative thoughts. And
Yeah.
so if we can put more positive affirmations around that they're focused on about I am instead of they are, I am, then we can actually help her start her day on that type of note and get positive results, right?
I
And
love that.
then another, sorry, this is another one,
That's
is
okay.
Love it.
acknowledging that the people you're comparing to, say a best friend who got first place in something, right? Acknowledge that she did get first place in something, that the qualities and gifts allowed her to get first place in something, but also focus back on, well, it's like because she's gifted in this, right? I have a best friend who has a beautiful voice and she sings. I wish I can sing, but I can compare myself all day and sing karaoke, but I probably wouldn't have the same type of talent she has, right? But recognizing the gifts that she has uniquely in her own life allows her to do
Mhm.
that thing. And that, again, I love encouraging people. I love mentoring people. So focusing back with your daughter and saying, you're great at encouraging. Why don't you go and encourage her to do that some more? Right. So you're focusing back on, yes, she's great at that, but let's go back in your lane and what can you do with your gifts to help encourage other people? Right.
I'm really happy you said that. I've actually been thinking about that recently around being able to really articulate the gifts of my girls and start to reinforce
Mhm.
them because in this age, it's certainly becoming obvious that the self-esteem or like that self-confidence is starting to weigh in.
Yep.
And I don't think even as adults, Alyssa and I have talked, sometimes we don't even know our own gifts as adults.
Yes.
Hmm.
So oftentimes you do have to be reflected back to on, no, this is a gift of yours. And then you can start to absorb and really lean into it, I think. So I'm glad that you mentioned that just because it's more of a um, acknowledgement or like, that yes, should be doing this. And I think that is really important and a way that you can help your girls to understand what their gifts are and then being
But
able to act on them. So
yeah,
thank
and
you for that.
asking, people who are around you all the time, simply asking, hey, what do you think I'm good at?
Yeah.
You know?
Hmm.
And I can almost guarantee people will tell you what you're good
Yeah.
at.
I think too, if we make it a point to make sure that we let our kids know what their strengths are,
Mhm.
it's so much more empowering because I know as an adult, there's definitely strengths that I possess that I know now, but they weren't really cultivated by adults as I was growing up.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, and then people would say things like, um, when I was really young, oh, you're bossy. Well, I wasn't bossy. I was actually demonstrating leadership skills.
Yes. Yep.
And so,
Yeah.
and now that I am in the leadership role as an adult, that all makes sense. And so for me, I really try to watch the words that I use when I describe my kids
Yep.
because I don't want them to hold on to a label like that. I want them to see those qualities. Like, yeah, they might need some refinement. Okay.
Right. Right.
I definitely was probably acting a little bossy, but it was because of my leadership skills.
Yes.
Um, but just kind of helping them to like hone in on that and recognize what they do excel at because I think as they get older and they need to make decisions for themselves, then they can tap into those strengths that they have. So I
Right.
like
And
to hear that.
and I love if it's fostered at a young age and it's just been a part of them, it no longer becomes this thing of shame or like
Right.
you're trying to be prideful because you have these gifts. You're allowing them to own it and remind them. So like, yeah, when they start to drift in a different lane and they remember like, no, I have the gift of leadership. I'm a great leader. And
Yeah.
yes, I agree with you. It needs to be refined, but that's the whole point of
Right.
our journey
Growing
is
up.
refining the
Growing
gifts.
up.
Yes, it's the point
You'll
of our
get
Yeah.
there.
growing up.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, super helpful. Oh my gosh, this has been really, really great. I know we're already nearing our time, which is crazy. So maybe as we start to wind down or wrap up a little bit, I'd love to know from you, what do you wish, and I'm sure it's going to be hard to answer, maybe one or two things, but what do you wish every mom knew before her daughter becomes a teenager? Is there a couple of things that you just wish we'd all realize before we enter that season?
I hate for this to sound negative because it's not. I think it's more of an anticipation when I say this. So think of it as an anticipation, but your daughter is not going to be the same little girl you know
Mm.
that you know now. And to expect a change. And as she becomes a teenager, she's becoming a woman. She's becoming, I think this is a chance for you to discover who she can become, who she can literally blossom into, right? It's a chance for you to sit back and see all the things you've taught her, the value you've instilled in her, the care that you've given her, the rules that you've helped keep her in line, right? You get to see her go and make those choices within a compound, right?
Mhm.
Because she's still at home. We're still responsible for them
Mhm.
until they're 18. But you get to see them make those choices and discover who she is, and you get to be a part of it. You get to choose how you get to be a part of it. And I think it's an exciting time. Some people are so fearful because of their own past experience of who they were. I mean, I could easily be fearful of my teenage daughter when I was raising her because of my own experiences, but actually I was really excited. I was excited to get to know them, almost expectant of some of the things that are changing, but on a positive side, right? Just like how, we can look at somebody who has leadership and say they're bossy, right? It's the same thing as teenage stage. We can look at teenage stage that is supposed to be this beautiful change that your daughter is going through as like the worst season ever, you know? But it's not. It's not. It's a season where they're growing up and we get to witness that and we get to be a part of it in a different way. We get to be their coach,
Yeah.
you know?
One thing I want to highlight that you mentioned, that a thought that popped up while you were speaking is, what, as moms, when we're pregnant or our kids are first born, we're always thinking like, oh my gosh, I wonder who they're going to be when they grow up and what are they going to be into and all these things. And so the fact that the teenage years are really the first like entry point into really seeing who they really are going to be when they grow up. And so
Yep.
that is really cool because it's like those are one of the first thoughts that we have as parents when they come into the world. And yes, you know them as they're growing up through all of the younger years, but to your point, really them starting to step into towards adulthood and really growing into their true selves.
Yes.
I love that you framed it that way, I'll say, because it does help. I think again, as someone who's going to be entering the season, reframe that a little bit versus that the mourning of the past stages versus what
Yeah.
opportunities lie in this season as well.
Yes, an opportunity to help her discover who she is, right?
Hmm.
Because
Yeah.
now it's no longer your responsibility, it's really her choices, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then overall, big picture, it's preserving the relationship between you and your daughter. It's being able to make the reaction and the choices of, if I do this now, how does this affect my relationship? Because the ultimate goal is that when she's an adult, that you want to be her friend.
Hmm.
You want to be that mentor that she goes to for wisdom, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that if we're even like thinking about that as moms, like if we're concerned about that, then that shows how much we care, even if they don't really understand that right now. Like we have to, I feel like give ourselves some grace too, because I don't know, Ashley, I think about this like with my oldest, it's like when you have multiple kids, you have your oldest, your youngest, I make a lot more mistakes when it comes to him.
Yes.
Yes. Yep.
Because this is the first time that I'm navigating all these things and I don't always get it right.
Yep.
But I do try to give myself grace, but also teach my kids. Like I will come back and say like, "Listen, I'm really sorry. I didn't handle that the way that I I
Hmm.
wanted to handle that. Like, I just try to be really authentic and honest with my kids
Yep.
and hope that they'll show me a little bit of grace too.
Yep.
And I
Yep.
kind of try to explain, like, I'm new at this too. Like, this, I didn't, just come with all, you didn't come with directions. We're all figuring this out at the same time.
You're right. Brene Brown says vulnerability is the number one connector. It dismisses any shame. And if you want to connect with your children, the quickest is being vulnerable,
Yeah,
right? And it's true. Our kids don't come with a handbook. I was the oldest child, so I felt everything.
me too.
Us too.
Yep, we are oldest children too.
Hence probably why we're high achievers. No.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
that would be that for sure.
But yes, I mean, we parents come, we don't know. We don't know, and that's okay. And if we come to realize that we don't know, then we give ourselves grace first, and the quicker we can give ourselves grace, the quicker we can give our own kids grace,
Mhm.
right? And that does not, it helps the relationship, then impacts it in a negative way.
Yeah, I love that you talked about the vulnerability because I think that's really key.
Yeah.
Okay, we have one question that we ask all of our guests here on the Hustle and Harmony podcast. So that question is, what does living with purpose and harmony mean to you?
Oh, goodness. Purpose and harmony. Gosh, living in purpose is, as a person of faith, is living in my calling, what I'm called to do. This is where I feel that the gifts, when we're talking about gifts, that our unique gifts are utilized in a way not only to impact yourself, to help others, but to help others in return, right? You're making an impact on others.
Hmm.
That's purpose for me. Harmony for me is being able to, it's not, like I said, it's not necessarily balance, because there's no such thing as balance. There's seasons,
Yes.
right? There's seasons where we're busier at work. There's seasons where we're in rest. And I think being in tune with that type of rhythm is harmony, right? And being in tune with, yourself. If you're starting to feel overwhelmed, if you're starting to, like I went to therapy, okay, and I think moms, it's okay to go to therapy, but I've identified that I'm addicted to intensity.
Mm.
So when I start to feel certain things within my body, then I start to go back to my tools, which is, what 3 things can I just do today and stick to that, right? But then again, also understanding there are seasons of growth and seasons of rest too.
Mhm. I love
Yeah.
that. That's a great answer.
Yeah.
And we don't
Thank you for
believe in
that.
balance either. So that's why we say
Yes.
harmony because we don't believe
Absolutely.
that balance actually exists.
Yeah.
I think it's basically a myth that's out there to set women up to feel like they're
To drive
chasing
us
something that
crazy.
they'll never have.
Yeah,
Right.
pretty
And it,
much.
it it does a lot of shame and guilt. That
Yes.
label is a lot of shame and
Yeah.
guilt that you're not capable, but you are, you
Yeah.
know? Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and the
Absolutely.
speak of seasons as well, because I know we talk about that a lot as well here on the podcast. So great to hear it come from someone else too, right? Just reiterating that and just getting that message out there. So
Yes. No.
okay, Jeannie. So let our audience know, how can they work with you or find out more about you and raising her confidently.
Sure, you can. There's 2 ways you can find me on my podcast, which is Raising Her Confidently. It's available on all platforms, including Apple and Spotify. Or you can go to my website, which is raisingherconfidently.com. I have a lot of resources there, including my newsletter with other tools, as well as a free mom community that you can be a part of.
That is awesome. I'm sure you're going to be getting some new joiners from that. I'm sure. Is there anything else that you wish that you would have been asked, or like any other nuggets that are coming to you that you feel called to share before we wrap up today?
I think we covered it. We covered it about grace,
Mm,
that you are the right person for your daughter.
mm,
There is no one else that can guide her to be the woman who she is but you.
Mhm.
And that if at any time where guilt, shame, and blame comes in, that needs to be dispelled. This is where grace needs to cover you, right? Because there is no such thing as a perfect mom. There is no such thing as a perfect journey. We are imperfect people doing the best we can. And so if we can accept that, mama, this will actually help your relationship. It will dispel whatever expectation you feel you need to be, all you need to be is the person that you are, and you are exactly who you need to be for your daughter.
I love that. I
Yes.
actually
I
just,
feel like I just got a coaching session, just
I
personally
know.
sitting here with you. So thank you so much.
You're
Yeah.
This has
welcome.
been awesome. This
That
has
was
been
so
so good.
good. And I just love that you just reiterated a thought that I had earlier in the week, this week, where, just going through like raising kids that are getting older. And I literally had this, like, I'll be very vulnerable and share. I had this moment at my kitchen island where I just like broke down to my husband and I was like, I don't think I can do this. Like, it's like the discipline and the like, it just
Yeah.
gets hard sometimes.
Yeah.
And I have really great kids, but kids do make mistakes. They're kids. And like, I said, sometimes I just don't want to be the parent. I just want to be able to like tap out. Somebody else tap in and handle this one. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yes.
And it was later that night that I had this realization. It just came into my head. I think it was, probably the Holy Spirit saying to me, like,
Mhm.
these children were given to you. You were the parent that was selected specifically by God for these
Amen.
children.
Hmm.
And he has equipped you to handle anything because he already knows what's going to happen. And he thought that you were the one who can handle it. And I was like, okay, like I was giving myself a little pep talk
Yes.
about that. But I love that you shared that because I think so
Hmm.
often we feel like, oh my gosh, am I going to do the right thing? Like, am I doing the right thing? Am I going to handle this the right way? Am I going to wreck my relationship with my kids as they get older? And so
Yeah.
thank you for reminding us to give ourselves grace because that is just super important, not just in this realm, but just in all aspects and areas of our life. I could be really hard on myself. I know Ashley, you're similar to me.
Hmm.
We could be a little tough on ourselves, but if we just learn to give ourselves a little bit more grace so that we can grow, that's really huge. So, thank you, Jeannie, for being
Amen.
here today. We
Yes.
so appreciate it. This was awesome. I can't wait for our listeners to hear this and
Yes.
get their thoughts.
We
Oh, thank
really,
you so
really
much for having me.
appreciate it. It's been a pleasure. So thank you again. And just to remind everyone, Jeannie, you can find her on Instagram. Her website will include all the information in the description of the show, so you can find her and work with her more closely. So I guess to wrap us up, Alyssa, do you want to wrap us up and get us out?
Yeah, so thanks for joining us. Don't forget, we drop a new episode every other Wednesday. So watch for our next episode, and we have even more special guests lined up and ready to go for everybody. All right, have a great week. See
See
ya.
you, everyone.